from Microsoft. You mentioned, well, you said several times that you don't have backdoors in your products, and of course I'm very, very happy that you say that. The problem is, of course, that most of your products are closed source, which means there is no way for an outside independent person to verify what is actually running on his or her computer once it's installed. You say that you allow some governments, etc., to read source code, and of course the source code that you let them read, quite obviously there are no backdoors in that source code. But there is no way to, I mean, because it's closed source, there's no way to verify that the code that you showed to somebody is actually what's running. In contrast, I mean, if we're talking about open source software, operating systems like Linux, etc., then the source code is published. Anybody with the expertise can compile it, can compare the binaries. So it's possible to verify open source software, but it's not possible to verify any of your products, I'm afraid. So my question is, if, speaking purely hypothetically, if it were the case that the NSA or some other US agency had ordered you to install backdoors in some or all of your products, would you be allowed to tell us that here now?
That's a funny one. Mr. Torvalds.
Thank you, Sophie. First of all, going back to intercourse, as you probably know, there is a small town in Massachusetts with this interesting name, and I'm suspecting that all the three of you have business there with some organization. And that goes to the different way of asking. My colleague actually almost posed the question when my oldest son was asked the same question, has he been approached by the NSA about backdoors? Then he said no, but at the same time he nodded, because then he was sort of in the legal free. He had given the right answer, and everybody understood that NSA had approached them. And then we have the third question, the third problem. Mrs. Belt said that there are no backdoors, which is not technically actually true, because you have bad programming with backdoors. Because if you have bugs, and you have bugs in your program, and that bug is a backdoor, and you actually give away some money to a certain James Forshaw for finding one backdoor. And we suspect that there are probably hundreds of bug backdoors in Windows programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Last question for Mrs. Lutford.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Yes, I mean, rather similar to the line that you were pursuing. I mean, we are, of course, dependent on press reports for the allegations of bulk metadata collection through PRISM and Tempora and so on, compared to your presentations here today. And it's really very difficult for us to match up the two. I heard Richard Allen say that there is much that is untrue. I can't remember the exact adjective you used, and that may well be the case. But of course, it's impossible for us to ascertain that. But I am slightly intrigued by the wording. At least two of you used the phrase that you permitted no direct or unfettered access to servers. Two of you at least used that. What is the opposite? Is indirect and fettered access. So could anyone tell me what you do allow if you don't allow direct and unfettered access to your servers?
That's intercourse.
Okay, I think those were three very precise questions. Mrs. Belts.
Yes. So now I feel as I was in an intelligence test. So let me give it a try. So it's all about trust. That's clear. But I think it's also what we need to take care is that we ground ourselves on facts and on legal requirements. So open source versus proprietary software, a long and heated debate since many years. Look, open source, yes, has the beauty to be open, but it also is open, by the way, to those people who want to develop this software to create some vulnerabilities and use the software to do exactly what you want to avoid. It's not more secure. I would even say there is more higher risk with open source that you have, that unwarranted access is taking place than for what I call controlled software. First. Second, if I'm able to allow, would NSA allow me to answer this question? Look, it's very simple. I can answer the question. There is no backdoor. Full stop. So, I don't need to ask NSA to be able to...
My question was, hypothetically, if there was one, would you be allowed to tell?
If there was one, then I assume that I'm not allowed to be told because it's part of the secret, of the rules which I have to apply not to talk. But I tell you that there is no backdoor. So then it comes to the next interesting question: what is a backdoor? And I think that's requires really some investigation and to make a clarification. For me, a backdoor is that something is built in our software, a hole, a vulnerability, which we give to the NSA that they can use it to get access to data of whomever. So this is not what we are doing. Yes, our software has vulnerabilities, as, by the way, any other software in the world. So our approach is to protect our customers and to close as much as possible those vulnerabilities because, yes, indeed, there are many criminals out who would try to use it and to do harm to our customers. So it is in the heart, in the DNA, and in the core of Microsoft's business to continuously close any vulnerability we have, and we certainly do not hand over any vulnerabilities for other purposes. And by the way, this is a very interesting conversation. If, some governments around the world would consequently use vulnerabilities of a technology in order to get access to data. Is this something which, from a political perspective, I cannot answer this, from a political perspective, you want to have this? And isn't this something you want to discuss on an intergovernmental level, if this should be allowed or not? But we are not providing, to make this very crystal clear, we are not providing any of these technical vulnerabilities to give access to allow others to get access to customer data or data of anybody using our technology. So the indirect and the direct and fettered access, so let me answer this. But it's very simple. What we want to, and I think we all kind of have their very clear point of view, we only give access to access to data of our customers which are on our servers if there is a concrete request. The request is legal, and then we do a search of the data. If the data are there, we are collecting them and we're handing them over. That is what we are doing. And we are doing that anymore? Sorry. I'm speaking too long, I'm sorry. So that is exactly what we are doing, and this is what we are obliged to do by law, and we follow and we adhere to laws, not only to the US law, but around the world, and we are getting from everywhere these requests. So indirect and unfettered would be that we say, look, here is our server, dear Secret Service, go, here is the interface, have fun, and check what you want to see. That is what we are not doing, and we can certainly exclude we all, all companies here have been confirming this. The unfortunate situation is that there are allegations out, and we have, very complicated situation which doesn't allow us to defend. But look, I only know the word in German, how you say for this, im Zweifel für den Angeklagten. So as long as there is not really very concrete evidence with the facts that we are doing this, my ask is, hey, let's have a conversation how to overcome the trust situation instead of kind of going into a PAT situation which does not help you to solve the political problem, which is a political problem, and does not help us because it's a trust problem which also harms our business.
So Lundblad?
Yes, there's no direct, indirect, fettered or unfettered access. There's only legal government requests that are looked at and scrutinized on a case-by-case basis. I think that is the answer. It means there's no backdoors, and we can say so openly. I think, though, that the question is really valuable because it highlights something that's very important. When we say that, you challenge that, there's no way for us to have an arbiter look at what actually has happened. And I think that whilst we know that we are telling you the truth, that's why we're driving for transparency, for parliamentary oversight, and for security that is only based on judicial authorization. That's the only way that you're going to get to a position or a point at which you're going to be able to say with absolute certainty that we are, in fact, telling you the truth when we are.
In your opinion, do programs like PRISM and Tempora not exist?
We had not heard of any program called PRISM before the news broke.
But of the general description that you read about in the press, I mean, you know, does a program like that ring any bells with you, of that broad general description?
We have not participated in any such program. We have not provided any access.
But are you aware
in
any sense that that kind of program, or is there no bulk metadata or whatever it is called? I mean, it's above my tech pay grade, quite frankly. But
I am obviously
does
the wrong
this
person
kind of thing not exist?
The question is clear.
Yes.
Question is clear.
I think I'm the wrong person to answer that question. It should be addressed to the security agencies around the world.
Okay, Mr. Allen.
I'm just busy doing a status update, so I'm in the same room as Linus Torvalds' dad. I'm really excited. On the question of how we sort of got here, I think people basically put 2 and 2 together and made 25 out of it. And there was an unfortunate, actually, coincidence in the news reporting that there was a report about bulk access to Verizon metadata, I think it was in the United States, that came out just before the revelations from Edward Snowden, and all of that was jumbled up together. So that we are spending time unpicking that. The language that was used, the direct and unfettered, was a reaction by our executives to press reports that used that language. So we didn't choose that language randomly. It was the press was saying, oh my God, there's direct and unfettered access. So we had to say there is not direct and unfettered access to respond to that. I mean, what's interesting, I think what's missing from the puzzle at the moment is it's remarkable to me how little information governments publish on their own requests. I mean, they are doing this in our name, all of us, on our behalf, using lawful authority. It would seem to me that while we as companies, some of us slower than others, have got to a point where we're willing to spend time and money publishing data about how many requests we receive, the people who send those requests, who are public servants paid for by us acting in our name, don't seem to think that they need to publish that information. And really, for any citizen to have a complete picture and know who's telling the truth, they need for us to say what we're receiving, which we've done very clearly today, but also the people who make the requests to say how many requests they've made in our name. And I think we can make progress in that. Then we can get past this bit of, a lot of putting little pieces together and making something that may not be accurate.
Okay, thank you all very much. That brings us to the end of today's session. Thanks to all the panelists for being here and being exposed indeed to our frustration, but it's our job to try and get at the truth somehow. Thanks to everybody present, thanks to the interpreters. The next session of the inquiry committee will be on Thursday, the 14th, so that's in 3 days, in the afternoon from 3 to 6:30. Hope to see you there.